It began with smoke, thick black, curling into the sky like a cruel signal of betrayal. From the edge of the woods, he watched as everything he knew disappeared into fire. His tail curled tightly around his leg, ears flat against his skull, eyes wide but dry. There were no tears left. He didn't understand why they had left him, or why they had done this. This was his home, his world, the front porch where he used to sit and wait, the cracked wooden bowl he'd nudge when hungry, the muddy garden he'd dug through and got scolded for, the girl's laughter, her warm hands on his fur, the boy with the freckles who shared his toast, the man's voice, deep but kind, calling him, sometimes yelling, but always coming back with a smile. Now all of it was gone. He crept forward, paws trembling, heat licking his face like an angry ghost. The air reeked of smoke and chemicals. Still, he pushed on, step by fragile step, until the heat grew too unbearable. He stopped, whimpered, and lay down in the ashes. His name was Max. A mutt, part retriever, part something wild and scrappy. His coat was matted now, blackened with soot, but somewhere underneath was golden brown. He had been loyal since the day they picked him from the shelter 2 years ago. And now, with the sky dark and his home a skeleton of fire and ruin, Max waited. Waited for them to come back. Hours passed. Then a day. Then another. Max stayed. Sometimes he wandered nearby, nose twitching at the distant scent of what used to be his world. But he always returned to the edge of the scorched remains. He didn't understand abandonment. Dogs don't. What he did understand was memory, and his was filled with love. The neighbors came, some with wide, pitying eyes. One man tried to lure Max with a piece of ham. Max refused to move. A woman, her hands trembling, tried to loop a leash around his neck. He growled low, not out of anger, but fear, confusion, loss. So they left him food instead. Water, a blanket that wasn't his but smelled faintly like laundry detergent and human warmth. Max didn't touch the food, but he curled up on the blanket at night, eyes fixed on the dirt road, always watching. 3 days after the fire, the rain came. Cold, relentless, soaking the earth and washing away the ash. The world became gray. Max shivered under a half-burnt awning, teeth chattering. The wind howled, trees bent low like they mourned too. Still Max waited. Until one night he heard something. Footsteps. Not heavy. Not boots. Tiny ones. He perked up, ears stiff, heart racing. From the trees came a soft sob. Then a voice, small, cracked. Max? Max, are you there? He shot up, tail wagging uncontrollably, whimpering with disbelief. It was her. Ella. His girl. She ran to him, soaking wet, face streaked with tears and soot. Max barked, a high, broken sound, and leapt forward. She collapsed to her knees, arms around him, sobbing into his fur. I looked everywhere, she cried. I told them you were still here. They wouldn't come. They said the fire was too big. Max licked her face, paws on her shoulders, trembling with joy. In that moment, the cold vanished. The pain, the fear, the days of waiting, all melted in her touch. But the moment was brief. Behind her, flashlights. Shouting, Ella, get back here. She turned, fear flashing in her eyes. I have to go, she whispered. They're taking me far away. To live with someone else. But I couldn't leave without saying goodbye. Max whined, pawing at her. She pressed her forehead to his. I love you, Max. You're my best friend. Always. Then she was gone, dragged away by strangers in dark coats. And Max was alone again. He didn't understand why she couldn't stay. Why humans always seemed to leave even when they loved you. But he stayed. Because maybe she'd come back again. Maybe she'd find a way. And as the rain fell and the shadows returned, Max sat in the ruins of what used to be his life. Still waiting. Waiting for her. Waiting for them. Waiting for hope. To be continued. The days blurred into weeks. Max no longer knew how long he had been waiting. Time for him wasn't marked in hours or days, but in moments of wind, the scent of passing cars, the echo of a child's laugh that wasn't hers. The food left by neighbors dwindled. The blanket, soaked and stiff from repeated rain, offered little comfort now. Still, Max refused to leave the place where his world had once stood. Even the fire had a memory now. The blackened beams, the rusted remains of a bicycle, the half-buried photo frame with cracked glass. Each piece held something sacred. A whisper of a life that was once his. A life he believed could return. One evening, the sky was painted in soft orange and lavender. Max sat on the gravel, ears twitching, eyes locked on the empty road. A van pulled up. He stood. The door opened, and a woman stepped out. She was older, with kind eyes and slow steps. Her name was Ruth, and she had heard about him through the neighborhood. She knelt down several feet away, holding out a piece of roast chicken. Max didn't move. "I know," she said gently, her voice thick with emotion. "You're waiting for your people." She set the food down and sat cross-legged in the grass. "I'm not here to take you away. Just wanted you to eat." He sniffed the air. The chicken was warm, tender, but he stayed still. That night she came again. Then the next. And the next. Always food. Always space. No pressure. No tricks. Sometimes she read from a book. Sometimes she just sat and hummed. Once, she even brought a recording of children laughing. Max perked up at that. But when it wasn't Ella's voice, he lay back down. Then one day, she brought a blanket. It was blue. And soft. And it smelled like fresh laundry and kindness. She laid it beside the ruins. "Not asking you to come with me," Ruth whispered. "Just don't freeze out here." That night, Max curled up on it. Winter crept in like a silent thief. Frost coated the blackened wood. The garden, once full of overgrown tomatoes and broken fences, was now a frozen graveyard of memories. Max limped sometimes. One of his back legs had started to ache. Maybe from the cold. Maybe from the long, curled-up nights under nothing but sky. Still, he stayed. Ruth continued to visit. She brought medicine wrapped in peanut butter. Slowly, he began to trust her, just enough to eat near her. Then beside her. But never to leave. Not yet. One morning, she didn't come. The wind was harsher that day. The clouds hung low like sorrow. Max waited until sundown. Then the next day. Then another. She didn't come. The loneliness crept in again. And just when he was about to give up, another car rolled in. But this wasn't Ruth. It was Ella's mother. She stepped out slowly, holding something in her hands. A picture frame. Inside was a photo, Max, Ella, and the boy with freckles. All three were smiling. The porch behind them untouched by fire. She knelt, tears falling silently. "She begged me to check on you," the woman said, voice trembling. "She writes me letters every week. Drawings. She always asks, 'Did you see Max? Did he come home yet?'" She placed the frame beside the blue blanket. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I didn't know /. I didn't think you'd still be here." Max inched closer. He sniffed the frame. Her scent was faint, but real. The woman reached out, stroking his fur with shaking hands. He didn't pull away. "I can't take you," she said. "But I promise. I'll tell her you're okay." She stayed a while, then left. Max sat by the photo, ears low. He didn't know what the words meant, but he knew the feeling in them. She hadn't forgotten him. As the new year dawned, Ruth returned. She had been in the hospital. A stroke. But she smiled through her tears when she saw him. "You waited for me too, didn't you?" She laughed softly, eyes glassy. This time, she brought something new. A collar. Not to take him. Not to chain him. But to give him a name. The tag read, "Max, loyal to the end." She didn't ask him to leave. But she came every morning. Every night. She built a small shelter beside the ruins. Just big enough for Max, his blanket, and a tiny solar light that kept the dark away. People began to visit more. They left toys. Food. Notes. One said, "Asterisk, your story gives me hope." Asterisk. Another. Asterisk, if only humans were as loyal. Asterisk. Max didn't understand the words, but he felt the warmth. He was no longer just a dog waiting for a lost family. He was becoming something else. A symbol. A survivor. A story. But his heart still ached. And every time a car passed, every time a child's voice called out, Max would stand. Just in case. Because what if one day, it really was Ella? To be continued. Spring came with the gentle promise of healing. The first signs were small, a bud on a broken branch, fresh grass between the ashes. Nature, unbothered by human tragedy, crept back in and began its quiet repair. Max had changed too. His coat was fuller now, brushed clean thanks to Ruth's careful grooming. The limp in his leg had faded. His ribs were no longer sharp beneath his fur. But most of all, his eyes, those once distant eyes, held a calm strength that spoke of waiting, loss, and something greater, resilience. People came from nearby towns just to see him. Children left drawings. Grown men sat beside him in silence. Some cried. Some smiled. Max never barked. He never chased. He simply sat, steady as a stone, in the place where his story began. And then, one sunny afternoon, it happened. A taxi pulled up to the gravel road. A tall man stepped out first, holding the door for someone inside. Ella, now older, taller, her hair longer. But the moment she stepped into the light, Max knew. He stood before his legs told him to. His tail wagged furiously. A whimper escaped his throat like it was pulled from the depths of his soul. Ella froze. Max! She dropped her bag and ran. They met in the middle of the path, collapsing into each other like time had folded inward. Her arms wrapped tight around his neck. His paws pushed into her chest as he licked her face, cried into her shoulder, barked into her hair. I never forgot you, she whispered, sobbing. Not once. Not a single day. Ruth stood nearby, smiling through tears. Told you he'd wait. Ella kissed Max's head again and again. I begged Mom to bring me back when I turned 16. I saved every dollar. I wrote every week. I dreamed of this. Max didn't understand her words. But he knew her voice. Her scent. Her soul. She was his. That night, under a sky full of stars, Ruth, Ella, and Max sat beside the small shelter. They looked over the remains one last time. It no longer felt haunted, just hallowed. Ella pulled out a folded paper. It was a drawing, crude but honest, Max sitting in front of a house rebuilt. We're going to build again, she said. Here, where it all started. But better, stronger, together. Max rested his head in her lap. The ashes were no longer a grave. They were soil. The next chapter. Months passed. The shelter grew into a small cottage. With windows, a red door, and a porch where Max would lie every morning. Children came to play. Neighbors dropped by with treats. Ruth came often, now part of the family she helped restore. Max aged, as all creatures do, but his heart remained young. His eyes never lost that watchful gleam. And one golden morning, with birdsong in the air, he lay peacefully beneath the porch he once thought he'd never see again. Ella sat beside him, her hand on his back. You can rest now, she whispered. You brought us home. He looked at her once more, sighed, and closed his eyes. Max was buried under the old oak tree, where the light danced through the leaves and the wind carried the laughter of children. A small plaque read, Max, the dog who waited. The heart that never gave up. Moral of the story asterisk. In a world that often moves too fast, forgets too quickly, and leaves too easily, loyalty is a rare and powerful thing. Max's unwavering faith, even in the face of heartbreak, reminds us that love doesn't fade when homes burn or when people go. It lives in the waiting, the hope, the belief that one day, those we love will return. Sometimes, the purest form of love doesn't speak. It just waits. And sometimes, that's enough to bring the world back together. The end.